Hello, my friends. I want to speak today about a compilation of a bunch of different things that once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you have to recognize the world that you actually live in whenever you see these things. This is the biggest thing that the foolish virgins cannot do. They cannot see the world as it is. They make up in their own minds what the world is. They make up in their own mind what Jesus is, and they worship those things. But they can't see the truth. They can't see the reality. Um, the easiest way for me to explain our reality is a zombie movie. And you have the survivors that have not been turned into zombies, and they're walking around, and the zombies are constantly attacking them and trying to eat them and suck their blood and whatever else they're going to do. They want to turn everybody that's alive still into the Walking Dead, the zombies. And that's the exact kind of a world that we live in, where all of the zombies attack those who have life, just like those who were dead attacked Jesus, who came with life. It's no different for anybody who follows him. But we can recognize them as being different from us, and they can recognize us as being different from them. It's like walking around in the midst of a zombie movie, the dead. And I was once dead also. I was born again 7 years ago, but I was dead before that. I also was a walking zombie. So this isn't anything that is different for anybody else. One must be born again if you're able to see the kingdom of heaven. There is no other way to do it. Everybody starts out as a zombie. You must become born again to understand these things, and that means have life. As who is the only one who has life? Jesus. He brought it with him. Now we can have it too, just as he has it. But to walk around in this world full of zombies, and it's likened to the Matrix or the Truman Show at the same time, because it's Satan building up a prison essentially to entrap people and snare people and to keep people in that zombie state of death, just as he himself will be for an eternity. And within that confinement, Paul spoke about it whenever he came into the prisons and then let the prisoners free. Spoken of in the Old Testament with the plagues of Egypt, where Moses kept saying, "Let my people go free" to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh would not let the people go free. That is this world. That's what we live in. The world does not want you to go free. So whenever you speak the things of God, the world hates you and condemns you for it, because you're speaking something to them that's complete foolishness, just as what we listen to them speak is the same foolishness, but from something completely different. But Satan gets all the credit for revealing things to the world. All of his signs they love, but they don't recognize that behind all of his signs sits God, who gives the approval or disapproval to anything bargained between Satan and God, and to anything in man's life. It all must come through God in order for it to happen. That's how you can know that you're in judgment, because look at your leaders. If any form of godliness remained in the world, you wouldn't have these people of leaders, but they are, which shows you the state, the end state of the Romans 1 mind, what it leads to. Leads to a complete desolation and destruction because of who God allows to be appointed. But not only these things, working within culture, within society, within music, within television, within theater, within all of it, are prophecies. And this is what a lot of people say, well, this is programming. They're doing this intentionally. Maybe so. I don't really know if that's the case or not with some of these things. Maybe it is programming from the government. But either way, it's allowed by God, so he has ultimate authority to send it out. What I do know is that Satan is a liar and a deceiver and a murderer. So he cannot speak the truth. He's not capable of it. Thus, if you see something in a movie or hear something in a song and you see it happen in life, it can't come from Satan, because he's not allowed to tell you the truth of it. He has to lie to you in one way or another. So those who have the eyes to see these things can recognize where that actually came from. It comes from God. Remember, God waters both the evil and the good. There are no plants that escape being watered. It's just only some take to the water, the seed that's planted. And I'm going to show you a whole bunch of things here of things that we can know our days. You could call them modern day prophetic books, movies, things that have happened already throughout history that you can see manifest in the world today. And it's not by coincidence, it's by design. So we have all of these mysterious balloons and objects flying around the earth now, apparently, that we're just becoming aware of, at least our generation of people. But these things aren't new. They've been around for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. They've been around since the Watchers were put over the earth. And there are both holy angels and wicked angels that watch over us. And they probably use similar things to do it. As all angels are created the same. They're different from man, they're different from God. You could look at an angel like a Terminator. You know, in Terminator 1, the Terminator was played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, and he was an evil Terminator sent to kill John Connor. But in the second Terminator, he was a good Terminator sent to protect John Connor. So you see, the evil angels and the good angels, one's a minister, one's wicked. They're both in the world and they both observe us at all times. But how can they observe us? Well, they're not omnipresent, we understand that. They don't have the powers that God does. They can see us, we can't see them unless they choose to reveal themselves to us. So this must mean that they have a great, vast understanding and knowledge of what we are doing at individual moments of our lives. And how do we do that? Well, we use satellites to track people and all these different things that we put up in the air, and cell phone towers and applications and Wi-Fi, all the stuff we track each other. Well, the angels are also going to use something similar to that. And I don't know exactly what it would look like, but I've been given dreams of antennas and arrays and radar kind of things where I've seen the earth and the people of the earth being tracked by these things. And I always thought that's got to be something that we're building and doing ourselves, because if you look at our technology, we're doing the same things. But thinking back on it and seeing what I'm seeing now, I'm seeing a whole different perspective of this. And I don't know it for sure, but something I can speculate on. What if the angels are the ones who are using these kinds of things? On my phone here, there was an event that happened in 1876 to May 1897. Mysterious large airships powered by propellers and decorated with electric lights were reported flying in California, Texas, and the Great Lakes states of the U.S. And who built this craft and for what purpose? So you see that they're flying in the Great Lakes states of the U.S. What do we have happening right now in the Great Lakes states? These things getting shot down, apparently. You can go back much earlier than 1876 and see reports of these strange balloon-like structures. There's reports of them, people drawing images, pictures of them in the 1500s that look very much like the ones that people are saying that have been found today, either flying saucer looking type things or balloon kind of like structures with tentacles on them and so on and so forth. There's drawings and pictures of them in caves that who knows how old they are. So clearly this type of stuff isn't new over the earth. It's just new to this generation of people who have been protected from those things for a very long time. The Aurora, Texas UFO incident, that's the one that happened in 1897 where a UFO apparently crashed. We know that angels are both physical and spiritual in a sense. They can manifest both, but they are very physical just as much as they are spiritual. So these angels have to use something, or they're not omnipresent. They have to have some other form of keeping tabs of man. And I say, what about if it's something like this? These mystery airships and these things that we're now apparently shooting down in the skies. What if that is actually a rays of angels? Whether they be good or bad, I don't know. But they would communicate on the same level because they use the same things, the same technologies. They were made by the same God. Just as all men use the same things in the world, physical flesh, we all can eat meat, we all can cut down trees, so on and so forth. The technology that we have as man is shared amongst all of us. Likewise, so it is probably with the third and the two-thirds, even though they're separated, they're probably using the same things. Just like we have nuclear weapons in America, they have nuclear weapons in Russia. More than likely, they're using the same things. There's a lot of other different examples of this kind of a matrix reality that we live in, because this planet was created. Satan has control over the physical planet. He is the owner of it, but that's only because the planet was fallen. Whenever it's rebuilt in its born-again state, after Christ brings about all the events that are going to happen on the earth and for the millennial reign, then it's fully God, with Satan cast completely out of the world. No more is he in it. Ownership completely is to Christ, and we have a whole different physical experience than what we have right now in Satan's world. But you can kind of picture it like, building a program. And in a fallen state of world, it means it's imperfect, meaning there's going to be blemishes within that world itself. So there's going to be things that appear that you can kind of see, that gives away the false world that you actually live in. And then there's things where you can see clearly that they were prophecy, prophetic events. The 1800s Baron Trump looks enough like Baron Trump and other parallels fostered time-traveling theories. That's what we call them, time-traveling theories. But in the late 1800s, there was a series of children's novels whose main character was named Baron Trump. He followed around a man named Don. He resembles Baron Trump, of course, that we know from Donald Trump and everything that happened with that. There was another book written in the year 1900. It was called The Last President, in which a strongly opposed New York politician surprisingly gets elected president, and people protest in a state of uproar. That politician in that book lived in a hotel in New York's Fifth Avenue, or, Trump Tower is on Fifth Avenue. And it was called The Last President, which is very interesting because what happened in 2020? It wasn't an election. It was a coronation of a king. Trump did not lose the election. We don't even know probably who would have won the election because they jacked it so bad. All things allowed by God. But if that's the case and Donald Trump was elected president in 2020 and he's not in the seat of presidency, that makes him the last president, because then we elected a king by non-election. They coronated that to Biden. So it's very interesting that the book is called The Last President. That should tell you actually what happened in 2020. If you can look at the book and understand that it prophesied of 120 years into the future from the time it was written. The Titanic. There was a book written, of course, that talked about an ocean liner named the Titan that sank after hitting an iceberg. And then 14 years later, the Titanic hits an iceberg and sinks. These kind of things have happened all throughout history. You look at the Orwell, 1984, which I've used to describe many of different things. We're literally living in that society. And that was published in 1949. And we can see everything that he wrote about then happening today for the most part. The movie that I was shown, Maximum Overdrive, how the Earth passes, or the comet passes through the Earth and its tail. It's a green comet, and it brings with it a mothership that it's hiding that goes to take over the world. And then right after this comet passes by us, that's a green comet, we start shooting down UFOs. All of these things are connected. It's like a prophecy. What else did I pick here? There's so many different things. The event that's happening in Ohio right now. Here's the plot of this movie. However, their lives are disrupted when a cataclysmic train accident casts a cloud of chemical waste over the town. This airborne toxic event forces a massive evacuation, which leads to a major traffic jam on the highway. This movie here, it was called White Noise, and it's literally happening in Ohio, happening in East Palestine, Ohio, exactly where the movie was shot in 2021. And you're watching it happen now 2 years later, exactly as the movie said. So these things are prophecy because they're happening. They've come to pass, and we spoke of it. What does prophecy look like to us? Well, the Lord said that they will all prophesy in the times of the end because the Spirit is poured out. And the angels, as far as this goes, they have their limited knowledge of things, such as spoken in Mark 13:32. They're not omnipresent. They're inferior to God. They're powerful, but not all powerful. But they're not humans either at the same time. And we will judge them. So whenever you think about the angels and their abilities, they have to use some form of having eyes to see over the whole planet and see people individually and see all of their actions without being physically present in their presence. So in other words, they're using some kind of technology to do this. And what did the angels give us? Of course, technology. So that's what they're using. What if it is like these ships that we keep shooting down? You look at the Matrix code from the movie The Matrix, and then you look at what came over Hawaii just a couple of weeks ago. It's the same thing. You look at the Truman Show and how he doesn't realize that he's playing a part in a movie, that his whole reality is false. Well, that's just like all the zombies that are walking the earth. They don't realize that the reality they're living in is not reality. It's a fallen version of reality. Thus, they get trapped here in this because they start to love the stuff in the world and the things in the world, whenever all of these things are not real. It's like, loving WWF. You understand that it's like a fake program, but if you believe it to be real and love it for that reason, boy, are you lost, because to them it's nothing but a work, as they would call it. You've been deceived by that. It appears to be real, but it's not. It's all scripted. It's all planned. What is the Bible? It's a script. It's a plan. And we live in the midst of that. To those who believe in God, it's our handbook, it's our resource guide, it's like an instruction set. But to the world, it's folly and nonsense. But what it is to both of us is a script that we're all walking like actors in it. And once you see these kind of things, it really makes you think about the reality that you live in and the people that you interact with daily. And anyone who is of God will wonder at some point in their time why they're so different than everybody else. Why can they see these things and they can't? And it goes in the same line of why Jesus spoke parables. Because the kingdom of heaven is given unto you, but not given unto them. And why? We don't know. But that is how it is. I can see these things and connect them and understand the reality, but I can show these things to a zombie and they won't think anything of it. They'll call me nuts. Well, that's not real, or that's a coincidence, they'll say. And I don't understand why things happen such as they do, such as our knowledge is very limited, even lower than the angels while we walk here. But we do know that we can have a form of godliness and not deny its power. Meaning that these things that I see allows me to live life in a world of death and remain alive, while those who are dead live in a world of dead and remain dead. And there's there's no way to even refute that within the word itself, that is how we can look at the world and understand it. Whether it be that or not, that's how we can understand it from our perspective. And all of these things that are happening right now in the world, somewhere you will find some obscure piece of literature or some song somewhere or some old movie or anything. Somewhere you'll find all of the events that'll play out in the world through one of those things. You know why we all of a sudden started making all these movies about asteroids and natural disaster strikes? All those movies started happening around the year 2000. Well, because there is a gigantic asteroid, hailstone, millstone that God calls it, that's going to hit the earth. All of these things are prophetic so that people can see and understand what's coming on them and turn from that. But the zombies can't see it. Only those who have the eyes to see can see it. And who has the eyes to see? Those who have become born again, who don't deny reality. We don't try to live in some false version that we created ourselves like the foolish church does, the ones who are lost. But we just go with what God shows us and we follow it. We do something greater than the Pharisees. Thus we have greater understanding than they. And we know that when all of these things, when the veil is cut like this to where you can really see it, you've really come to the time of the end, where Jesus is truly at the door. And there's not a whole lot of time left when that veil starts to get cut. And we're literally watching all of these things that were hidden for all of these years suddenly coming into full view. God bless.